You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Mr. Josh Ballard.
How's it going?
Is it Ballard or is it Baller?
It is Ballard. I always tell people that if you're familiar with the duck, mallards, it's just the duck with a B.
Duck with a B.
But
I like
a lot of people like to say Ballard, Ballard, Bullard. I get tons of variations on the various telemarketers that call me throughout the day. So
Do you ever actually pick up with a telemarketer? Because I feel like I never, that was a big thing when we had landlines. People would call, I'd have a little voicemail thing set up. Next thing you know, they'd be like, "Hi, you've reached the blank residence. Please leave your name, this, and that." And then someone would just hang up. You're like, that was a telemarketer. Then now I just get calls when I'm taking a shit or something. That's like, "Hi, is Jessica there?" And I'm like, "No, this isn't Jessica." "Oh, well, maybe you can help me. If you're looking for Jessica, she probably has boobs. I don't really have boobs, so I don't think I can help you."
well, I was gonna say the ones that I get, so like for my real job, my non-podcast job, I work for a company that has employees all over the country, and I get phone calls from numbers for work that I don't have saved in my phone. And usually the telemarketers are spoofing a area code that I'm familiar with. And so I just end up answering it. And then, they're talking about my auto insurance or something like that. And I've just got to hang up. But I've also, for some reason, I don't know who Madeline is, but I think she signed up my number on some website sometimes. So I keep getting text messages and calls asking for Madeline. So whoever she is, if she just happens to be listening to this, I need her to know she needs to chill.
There's a trend that had been going on recently where people were texting their number neighbor. And it's like you just text the one number that's different from yours. And some person texted me and I was like, "Oh, hi, this is funny. Like, you're a number below me. That's cool." And like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, I said my area. And they're like, "Oh, I'm from Salisbury," which is pretty close to me. So I'm like,
Yeah.
perfect. And then next thing I know, I just text them, "Here's my podcast." So now they're a fan. So
Oh, that's awesome. I'll say at least you got something out of it.
they know my address if they want to kill me, because I've probably said it on here multiple times.
Dox yourself.
Well, but Josh, so when it comes to what you do and then what you do during podcasting, which one are you, I guess, a favorite of, and how do they lead into that? Like, how do you go from doing what you do in your day job to wanting to start this podcast?
Yeah, so I mean, for my day job, I've worked since college, worked in marketing and communications, and so that, I mean, plays a big role into going into podcasting, just being comfortable talking, along with being able to put together, the marketing piece of doing that. And so I've been doing that for several years, and so the podcast that we just started is called "Tell Me I'm Wrong," and it was actually an idea that had been brewing for probably a year and a half. I started it with two of my best friends, Ryan and Joe, and we play D&D together, just like every other group of podcasters on this earth. And so that's kind of where it was born out of, because we just were comfortable talking to each other. I mean, but we built this world for our group that we play D&D with, and when we were wrapping that up, we were just like spitting out random ridiculous hypothetical questions, and who would win in a game of 5-on-5 basketball, in sync or the Backstreet Boys? If the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles turned on each other, who would win? And we were just drinking beers, hanging out, having a good time. And we're like, this would make a really fun podcast. Like, I'd listen to this. And so we let that idea sit for a while. And, we're all busy professionals, but, just like other people, once the quarantine hit, we had a little bit more free time and started talking about more and realized we could fit it into our schedules, and said, let's give it a go. And so we gave that a start. But, the great thing about what I do for a living is, marketing communication spills over into this quite a bit. And I think
Finding
really
a way to be able to market your podcast to different audiences
has helped us get launched for a brand new podcast. We're not famous comedians. We're not, we don't already have an existing media property that people are coming over from. We're just three guys that like to have fun. Had a idea we thought would be fun and people would listen to, and so far we've, of the folks who have found us, have had a really good reception. So it's been fun and something we're looking forward to. We've got a lot of good questions in the holsters that we're ready to queue up here in the future. So it's pretty exciting.
So when I first came across your podcast and it was like, tell me, I'm wrong. That's the name of it, right? I'm making sure I'm getting that
Mhm.
correct. Okay. So I immediately thought Steven Crowder, where there's that sign of him sitting out front of like a campus and he's like, what
Mm.
he says something, it's like, tell me I'm wrong. So I thought it was you guys like maybe disapproving some things or trying to show people like, no, you're actually wrong.
No, I mean, I'll be straight up. I'm not a fan of his, but it wasn't even that. Really, the um, we initially came up with the idea because one of us just said to me, "I'm wrong." When we were having a conversation, I was like, "That's perfect." But even more so, most of our questions really bleed over less from politics and things like that. More so, so there's a there's a video. I don't know if you've seen it, where these two guys are arguing about the Wicked Witch of the East. He's like shouting at me. He's like, he has this crazy argument about the Wicked Witch of the East versus the Wicked Witch of the West, and how she's not actually good, she's bad. And he's just like shouting at his buddy, "Are you going to tell me if I'm wrong? Are you going to tell me I'm wrong?" And so we thought, after we initially came up with that, I thought back to that video. I was like, that's almost perfect, because the goal is for us to get in these debates about pop culture that are just absolutely ludicrous, and hopefully eventually get a little fireworks occasionally just for fun. So
Well, what
that was
exactly do
really
you what exactly do you find ridiculous? Because now I'm curious. I kind of want to. I kind of want to be a guest on this show now. I want to figure out what people are trying to. Because I have some thoughts on some stuff that people don't like. Like, do you think Green Lantern was a good movie? I thought it was because it's the only movie I have for him. The actor that played the Green Lantern, Ryan Reynolds, thought it was complete shit.
Yeah. No, I mean, so there we've talked about a few that might be your standard pop culture debates, but really what we're looking for is taking some of those classic debates or classic pop culture topics and taking them to a ridiculous place. So our second episode was about, your classic sports debate, Brady versus Manning. Typically that'd be who's the best quarterback, who's the greatest of all time, whatever it may be. But for us, it became, who would you prefer to be the sex talk as a kid? We just we were like, two folksy guys. I mean, Tom Brady's an oddball too, and so is Peyton Manning. But we were just like, we've got ridiculous stories about when we got the sex talk as kids, and then we brought those to this debate as well, and we just kind of tied it all together. And so our goal is to take like those classic debates that people would want to listen to and just find the most ridiculous spin on them. That's ultimately our goal, and then to actually go and do the research, back it up with quotes, interviews, statistics, apply whatever we can to it to make it like a real research debate about the most ridiculous topic possible.
Okay, which is better, Coke or
But
Pepsi?
I'm not above. Well, see, that's a hard debate. So instead of which one better, Coke or Pepsi, we'd probably do something that's like, which one's more likely to get rust off an old fender or something like that, and we'd actually go test it out and find out which one was actually better for that. Because just the Coke Pepsi debate, Coke, by the way, Coke's better. Not doesn't really tickle our fancy. We want something a little more out there. You said you bristle at that, but it's true.
Look, all right. See, I didn't know the distinction between Coke and Pepsi until I was like 20 years old. When I was like, wait a minute, there's an actual taste factor here. Because I think as a kid, you're just drinking a drink just to drink a drink.
Yeah, I was say, see, I'm from Coke country. We call every soda a Coke, so it's just ingrained. It's not a pop. It's not a Pepsi. It's not a soda. It's a Coke.
Okay, then which fast food establishment though? Prove me wrong. Which is better, McDonald's or Burger King? I say Burger King.
Well, I personally, I'd go with McDonald's because I prefer a nice bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit to a croissant sandwich, just personally.
That's
But
breakfast though. But that's a point though. Now they serve it all the time. So I guess all right, I
they
agree with
serve
you
it
on
all the
that.
time. You can get it anytime.
I'm
But
proving
on top of
myself
that, I
wrong
just,
in this. I think
I'll take a Big Mac over a Whopper personally.
okay.
But a better question for that one would be McDonald's or Burger King. Which one could you host a better wedding reception in?
I feel like I could toss out a bunch of ideas and you could just form them to perfectly fit your show. I like this idea.
That's what we do. That's what we do. We take it to the extreme. That's our goal.
Is it kind of like would you rather? Like if I toss out a would you rather, like would you rather get a blowjob from your grandfather or would you rather get a hand job from your grandma while she makes you a funnel cake?
It's got the bones of would you rather, because it's just, so, I mean, you're having two absurd questions and trying to pair them together. So yeah, the bones are there for that. I don't know if we'll debate that topic, but the bones are at least there from what are the odds. It's easy, or would you rather? I mentioned what are the odds. It's a different game me and my friends play, but I personally, I think if you're familiar with would you rather, you get the concept pretty well.
I think it's a good idea for a podcast because I mean it'll lead to a deep discussion of things. Like you'll start to figure out like which is better, or I think Marvel's better than DC, and then there's a bunch of different information, and there's a bunch of different movies that could side for either point depending on where you stand or what was your influence as a kid. I mean, for me, I would say I think Marvel's probably the most popular compared to DC, but a lot of my favorite superheroes are in DC. It's just the way that the show is structured.
Well, you might enjoy one we've got coming up here soon, because it actually is Marvel versus DC. However, we're going to be debating. There's a lot of this will actually be our first semi-political topic without actually being about politics. But we're going to debate Marvel versus DC. Who would make the most competent democracy among the heroes and villains? So you're going to have to select your president, vice president, secretary of defense, all the way down the line. So it's you might be interested in that one.
How do you typically come across like a topic? Is it just something that pops in your head, which you think would be a good one, or do you do any research into seeing what's trending? You say pop culture, but what exactly about pop culture? Like, is matcha tea better than regular tea? I don't even know what matcha tea is, so I'm probably going to say no.
Yeah, well, we always try, since there's three of us. The goal is to alternate as moderator, so two guys can argue and then we can rotate, just so that whoever is most familiar with because personally I'm not a huge comic book guy. Like I've seen all the Avengers, a lot of those movies, and I've seen some DC movies, but I'm not someone who's read it. So Joe and Ryan are, so they're going to debate that one. I'm going to moderate it. But as far as coming up with the topics, we try to find things that we like first off, because that just makes it easier. We will look at what's trending, especially into the future. We've got a lot of topics we've already lined up, but we've got some ideas for as we get closer to the election or holidays, and then also just keeping an eye on what people are talking about to see if we can hop in with some ridiculous take on it. We've just spitball ideas all day in a group chat, and the ones that stick, we add to a big list, and just kind of look them over and pull whichever one we feel like debating that week. So we've got a pretty healthy list of topics right now pulling from, and so I think it's going to be um, that's an advantage that we have, is that we just think ridiculously, all three of us. So it helps out. We churn these out pretty quick.
Do you try and get like guest intake, or do you try and get like maybe some people that you know's intake on some ideas and stuff? I feel like if I'm doing a comic book debate and I know a little bit maybe, but not a lot, I would refer back to some of my guests who own like comic book shops. Or if you're talking about
Yeah.
food, I would obviously, like you said, listening to a barbecue podcast of mine or something. I would refer to one of those guys when it came to like what temperature is better to cook an egg or cook a boiled goose or something? Am I going to go 350 or am I going to go 250? It's like, oh, you want to do a 250 with a simmer and then you want to rise it to the top at a classic 300. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you said, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we haven't had any guests up to this point, but that's one of our goals for the future, is to be able to, if we're debating a specific topic, especially something that we're familiar with, but maybe there's someone we know, like, we've got a friend that's a huge uh, Marvel fan. Like growing up, read all the comic books, seen all the movies, really ingrained in it. Like we're gonna pull him in to get his feedback on some things. Or if it's someone who is really into a particular sports team and they're part of the topic, we might bring them on. And then eventually, we'd love to have people that we don't know that are just experts on the topic come on and help us out a little bit. We think that would be fun. So definitely want to have some outside opinion. Right now, the extent of the outside opinion is like occasionally I'll ask my girlfriend, or they'll ask their wives for some feedback, or some friends. But yeah, eventually we want to have some folks on to join in on the debate a little bit.
And what do you find is one that you particularly want to talk about that maybe your buddies don't really know too much about?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple. So I'm a big HTV Food Network guy personally. So I've had a few. First, I need to find a topic where I can just argue in favor of Guy Fieri, just because that feels like the right thing to do
I was
personally.
never a fan of that
Um,
guy until recently, man. I'll tell you that much.
I'd say
I
he's been stepping up lately, but something about his presence on like diners, drive-ins, and dives. It's very comforting for some.
I
I don't even know why.
I heard him on a podcast with Bert Kreischer, and to hear him talk about this pandemic situation and everything he's been doing to try and get it out there and really kind of connect with the people and be pro business and pro giving back to these,
Hmm.
especially these mom and pop shops that are closing, and his stories of the industry in general. I have a new respect for the man. It's the same reason why you could probably do a debate topic on, like, is Gordon Ramsay an asshole or is he a nice guy? He comes off as an asshole, but I think down to his core, he just really is passionate about what he cares about, which is food, and he wants to push you to your hardest. And sadly, diamonds aren't made without pressure. You know what I mean? You're not going to get to
Yeah.
your master class or perfectness without being a douche.
I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan as well, and yeah, he definitely is an ass to some people. Like, but there's always a purpose to it, at least from the outside looking in. But then you go like watch one of his solo cooking videos, or like one of the ones where he's with his kids or something, and he's like the most like gentle, kind, soothing TV chef of all time. And the dichotomy is fascinating because personally, I tend to try to be a pretty nice guy to people, and it's not in me to usually be mean or anything. So the fact that he can do both to extremes just blows my mind. But that's what I respect about him, is like he knows when to push buttons and he knows when to dial it back.
He's well
And
versatile in the ways of calling somebody a bitch,
yeah,
I would say.
yeah. But then at the same time, Guy Fieri's got like, I mean, he does good stuff, but he's got like one volume, and you know what? I respect that too. If you know what you do best, like just stick to it. And Guy Fieri knows that what he does best is wear that shirt and say silly things to diner owners. So he's in his lane.
I'm trying to think of a good one that you probably haven't come across yet.
Yeah, well, we've batted around a few good ones about like who do you feel like you could survive in the wilderness with of any of the TV chefs on Food Network. One that I'm excited about as also an HGTV fan is debating which of the Property Brothers is most likely to steal your girl. Um, that's almost certainly going to happen at some point. We have some thoughts on both sides of that debate. But I'd like to come up with more of those, but those guys, it's not really in their bag. They're much more like sports, comic books, TV, movies, which I get too. But eventually I'm going to find a good lane for me to do one of these ones that I really want to do.
Who I can get you some barbecue people if you want that would want to come on and definitely talk
Hey,
about some stuff.
I was gonna say I listened to several of the episodes you did with some pit masters and stuff, and I would welcome their opinion on the podcast.
Take a pic, dude. I'll shoot him a message to him. I always find it interesting when someone starts going off about something that they really love, because I'm sitting there like, you have a wealth of knowledge I have no, I guess, care for. Like for me,
Yeah,
I'm more than happy putting in a hot pocket in the microwave for 20 minutes and doing it that way. But like hearing people talk about like the
yeah.
crazy combinations of cooking food, down to the heating, the temperatures, the spices, the rubs, the amount of air consistency that's in the room, the
Hmm.
volume. And I'm like, wow, you really care about something that there's nothing in me for to care about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, and I mean, a lot of that's my personality too, and that's why I liked those, hearing from people from all different walks of life that are really passionate about something. Because when I love something, I dive headfirst into it. I think that's what it helps the podcast, because when we have something that I'm really excited to talk about, like we did, which restaurant mascot would make the best horror movie villain this past week. That's coming out this coming Thursday, and so um, we did that one, and I'm very passionate about my fear of Chuck E. Cheese, but I deep dived into his history and all sorts of stuff, and it's wild. But I do
You
that with
think,
everything that
hold
I
on,
love.
you think Chucky, what were the options? Did you think about Grimace?
Oh,
Grimace seems like a
any
savage.
any restaurant mascot. So that's fair. It's a fair point. But to me, first it comes down to personal experience. So for me, Chuck E. Cheese, and I detail it on the podcast, is like as a kid, I would have recurring nightmares about him chasing me through the playset at a Chuck E. Cheese, like recurring, and that's always stuck with me. Never liked never liked that rat. And he's just like, I mean, the whole point of the restaurant, I detail this in the podcast too, is like it was founded as by the founder of Atari as a means to get kids like playing video games more often, you know. And nothing against video games, I love video games, but
Isn't that Dave
you
and
know,
Buster's?
it was all a scheme. Oh, Dave and Buster's, same idea, but Chuck E. Cheese was the, I mean,
The
like
OG.
I think 1977. Yeah, he's the OG. So like, I mean, the whole purpose of it was a scheme to sell more video games. Which, hey, I respect the hustle, but you know, it's not a wholesome. It's not as wholesome as you think. And so I had to break that down, and is very important to me. But yeah, I got real into that research for that one. But anything that I love, I do the same thing towards. So like, you know, I mentioned we play D&D. We're all really invested in that. I'm a big pro wrestling fan. Love that. Another thing we need a topic for eventually. And like, anytime I find something I love, I'm going to learn everything there is to learn about it, study it, watch YouTube videos, read articles, books. It's just like, that's just my personality. So that's, I gravitate towards people who have immense knowledge about any topic, because that's just how I am about the things I love.
I got a few things. Here we go. Hang on, ready? Which is better, energy drinks or coffee?
Coffee, by
Coffee.
far.
Huh. I don't know. I'd have to debate you on that one. I think energy drinks are. I feel like coffees are good for certain times of day, but if you're drinking one in the middle of the day, like in 80-degree weather, you're not happy.
Well, it's really a debate about like quality versus quantity. So if you need or timeliness, even if you need quick energy, you just need it on the go. Like an energy drink's perfect because you're just going to sip it. You're not there for the flavor. I mean, even the best flavor of energy drink, I think we could all agree, is not up to snuff compared to other things. But a nice cup of coffee, if you want quality time, comfort, you know, to just relax a little bit, get some good flavors, coffee's the way to go. And so that's another thing that I mean, that's a perfect one because I'm passionate about coffee. Like on the weekends, I'm always doing pour overs, buying, you know, beans from all over the country, for grinding them myself, like doing the whole 9 yards. Like I love that. But yeah, energy drinks just don't do it for me. Other than 5-hour energy, I was known for drinking those in high school because
See, I never could get into 5-hour energies. I used to drink like 6 of those 20-ounce Red Bulls for breakfast, like from like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I would just walk to work and kill those things, and with a bag of Skittles too. That was like my whole high school years. But like, I'm down to like
I'd be
maybe
raging.
I'll do energy drinks, coffee, none of that. I could drink a pot of coffee, go right to bed. I mean, I just that
So I wish I could do that.
yeah, I don't know. It sucks because like, I'm an insomniac, so I'm always having energy. So like, I mean, it's weird.
Mhm.
You'll be tired one minute and then like a full awake the next. So it's like trying to get sleep longer than an hour is just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I drink coffee a little too close to bedtime, I'm talking like anytime after 5 p.m. It's I'm toast. I'm gonna be
Oh,
up all night.
perfect one. I always mention in the podcast. This is a great question. I can't believe I almost forgot this. Which do you prefer, ketchup on your eggs or no?
No ketchup, hot
Thank
sauce.
you. Yeah, it's good man.
Yeah,
Good man. If you put ketchup on your
personally,
eggs, you're a psychopath.
yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't understand pairing something that sweet with eggs. Personally, that's just my 2 cents. If you're gonna do that, like throw your eggs on some pancakes or something. You don't need ketchup for that. But a good like Cholula on eggs knocks it out of the park. It's the
Oh,
best thing.
oh yeah.
It's the best thing for breakfast.
Hot sauce is good on anything, dude.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not. I don't play. Ketchup's fine on fries, but I'm not even a big fan of that. I'd rather have like some malt vinegar or something.
What about if you had to pick a childhood icon on a TV show, which do you think is more likely to be a pedophile? You can't say Bill Cosby because that already came out.
Yeah, no, that one's too obvious. Man, that's a great question.
Mine is Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers? See,
Dude,
I love Mr. Rogers. But you know what?
I've heard people say that before, but I've told my mom, when I see that guy's face, I immediately think he's got a couple bodies in the basement. I'm not joking to you. I swear
Yeah,
to
I
you.
mean, it's the combination of the sweater, the sneakers, the puppets.
The smile.
You know, that's a pretty the smile. That's a pretty solid debate. I mean, sometimes monsters hide in sheep's clothing. You know, and
Hi there, neighbor.
that also doesn't help. You're making a very compelling case for this one. You're almost bringing me over to your side here. I mean, man,
You
gotta
see
think of
how he
somebody
takes
who
off his
wants to
shoes in the
keep their
morning?
house.
That is not how
That's
a
true.
normal person takes off their shoes. That is that, and he sets them down, and then he does a full stand up like a soldier, and then like he starts slowly walking, right foot, left foot. But when he does it, he walks like in a form. I'm like, there's something wrong with that guy.
Yeah, it's not normal. It's not normal, but I don't know. I can't get there with you. Although Mr. Rogers was the source of. We're getting a trend here. Once I talked about Chuck E. Cheese of things I was scared of as a child. One of which was clowns, and it was because of an episode of Mr. Rogers where he put on a clown mask and took it off, and that was pretty traumatizing. So maybe I'm not as fond of Mr. Rogers as I thought I was at first.
All right, who was better
So
though, Mr. Rogers or Pee Wee Herman?
I mean, Pee Wee's funnier by far.
Yeah.
But Mr. Rogers much more comforting. But hey, it all could be a lie based on your premise. So, I mean, I'm gonna go with Pee Wee just for the fun aspect.
I mean,
Plus,
he
I feel
also
like
did get caught in a movie theater. That was
yeah, that's true. He might actually be the answer to your question. I don't know though. He seems he was minding his own business. They interrupted him. You know.
See, this is where your podcast is fun, but then it's difficult because you start looking at the answers and you're like, wait a minute, there's so many sides to both parts where they could both be technically insane.
That's the great part though. You gotta fight it out and then come up with an ultimate winner. That's that's the most important thing there.
Okay, which console of video games is better, Xbox or PlayStation?
Currently, I mean, I've always been an Xbox guy the last two go rounds with systems, but I'm almost certainly going to migrate over to PS5 once it drops or whatever they've decided to call it. So that's a hard one. If I'm going all time though, it's absolutely the N64, and there's no questions about it.
Wow, no one ever tosses out the Wii.
Well, Wii's good. I was never a big Wii guy. I am a Switch guy now, mainly for Animal Crossing because I love that game. But
Never played it.
you should really change that. It's just so like relaxing.
See, I look at that game.
Trees.
I look at that game and I look at they had a game for Xbox, Viva Pinata, which I used to play insanely. So I was like, that nothing compares to Viva Pinata in my mind.
That's fair. But yeah, I was gonna say I've been playing the Switch more than anything. But if I had to pick, I'm gonna switch back over to PlayStation on this next go round. So all my friends play PlayStation, so I'm the only loner out here on Xbox. So I've gotta join the crowd, I suppose, if I want to play with my friends.
Okay, which Oblivion or Fallout?
I've actually never played Oblivion.
Skyrim. Skyrim.
Okay, definitely Fallout for me. It's just
Okay.
more fun.
I get it because it's more futuristic. There's more things.
Yeah, I like a good like dystopian, futuristic. I'm in sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi guy. So like anything in that realm, I'm Oblivion. Is interesting, but it's just not. Fallout was made for me. I feel like, except for the most recent one, it was.
Which topic in school, math or reading?
Oh, absolutely reading.
All right. Cool.
I'm absolutely trash at math, like to this day, which is why I work in marketing communications and making a podcast. I can't do math, but I can talk and I can read. So and write. So those are my strengths. I know my strengths. I'm sticking to it. Even in college, I was so bad at math. I'd have to like call my mom and be like, "Yeah, I need you to help me," because she's a teacher, and it was like basic college math I was struggling with. It's just not for me. Just not my bad.
I get it. I failed algebra 1 3 times, man. I was just like, I don't want to do this at all. They're like, can you find Pythagorean's theorem? I'm like, find it his own damn self.
The number of times I use math in a day these days are very low. So I think I made the right choice with my future.
I'm still alive. I mean, I don't need to calculate tax ever because I just choose not to go out to eat because I don't want to deal with that 20% hassle.
Sometimes you just got to learn from your mistakes and grow from them. Because like when I was a kid, I wanted to work for NASA so bad. Like that was my dream. And I got into high school and could barely do pre-algebra and was like, yeah, I don't think it's in the bag for me. Like I'm not going to be building space shuttles. So you got to pivot at a certain point, recognize what you're good at and what you're bad at.
I feel like with so many ideas I've tossed out, I need to be the host of the podcast now, Josh.
I know you got to take over.
Come on,
you got to come up with some. You got to come up with some ridiculous ones. Let's see here. I'll give you one from our first episode here. We talked about quarantine houses. I'm sure you've seen these posts going around. We're trying to come up with the absolute worst quarantine house made up entirely of TV characters. So who would you put in that house? Who would just annoy you? Who wouldn't get along? Like, what TV characters do you hate the most?
Jerry Seinfeld.
Really?
His
I
voice
don't
is
disagree.
god awful.
That's a good point. He'd also be making observations about everything going on in the house, and he'd be
I
like,
mean, the oven. Why is it on? It's like,
"What's
oh
the deal
my
with these
God.
masks? They tell you to cough into your elbow, but then they tell you to bump elbows." You know, like it's just that would be awful. I've come around on that one. I mean, that's the great thing though, is when you're putting your quarantine house together, you got to come up with the ones that aren't obvious. Like I feel like if you're going to pick someone from Seinfeld, you'd probably go Kramer because he'd just be busting it out of the house, and he's out and about, spreading disease everywhere. But personally, I'd probably find Jerry more annoying because he'd be at the house the whole time, just being obnoxious.
Yeah, he
I'd
definitely
say
doesn't want to go
the
outside.
other best one that was in there was Tim Taylor on our podcast. My co-host Joe threw out Tim Taylor because you knew he'd be destroying your house the entire time because he'd get too bored being in the house. He'd have to, add more horsepower to the garbage disposal and add on a third floor to the house, and it's just going to be a disaster.
I feel like Mike Tyson would be unbearable just because the fact is you're basically in a room or in a house confined to a spot with another dude that has insane testosterone. So like if you disagree over like, I want to watch Animal Pals, I want to watch Dove's Kiss, and it's like, oh, okay.
If you make one wrong move, you're going to get knocked out,
Or you're getting
absolutely.
an ear taken off.
Or that. Personally, I mean, either sounds good. I'd probably take the ear over getting punched in the face by him because he'd probably you're more likely to die with that than just a bloody ear.
Which do you prefer, The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones?
Man, that's hard. I'm probably gonna have to go Walking Dead just because I was never Game of Thrones is good, but it never connected with me. And I think that last season was just so off that it just turned me off.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, so Walking Dead's the only thing for me.
I mean, Walking Dead's awesome. Plus, Robert Kirkman's from Kentucky, which is where we're from. So I'm gonna have to go Walking Dead on that one, just to rep the state.
Well, what's so important about this is when you look at we talked about before, why a person chooses something, it's because of a lot of what connects them. Like you being a fan of watching, HGTV, those types of shows and everything. Those are a lot of stuff that they help structure you too, especially when it comes to a food network or a food program. I mean, you get to learn a lot of basics. You probably know a little bit more than your buddies when it comes to being in the kitchen, at least.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's finding those things, especially all my friends. I mentioned the things that we didn't have in common, but we have a ton of stuff in common. Like me and Joe connect on pro wrestling. We watched that last night. Me and Ryan on D&D, and we like a lot of the same podcasts and talk about those all the time. And it's just those things that you can find in common and that you can build a relationship over are the coolest things. So I think that's part of the reason I like to diversify my interests so I can find avenues to connect with a lot of people.
Okay, I had a debate a long time ago. A teacher tried to tell me something that I didn't believe in. Basically was, do you think kids should get free lunches or not?
That's a tough question. To me, I will always side on the side of the debate that has the most empathy and understanding that, some people can afford lunch and some people can. And if they can get a free meal at school, that's something that we can provide. I'm happy for my tax dollars to go towards that. That's just my perspective, but I understand when people see it a different way.
He was trying to tell me that he didn't think that. And I was like, you're a teacher. How do you think that? And then eventually I figured it out. I was like, wait a minute. You're a private school teacher. So those kids are paying so much money to go to school. They should definitely be able to afford a lunch. But
yeah, I was going to say, those private school lunches tend to be a little, I had the opportunity to go to private school growing up just because my mom taught there. We weren't, the well-off folks that could afford it necessarily, but she taught there, so I got to go for free. And that's a lot different. they're definitely not going to believe that, to be quite honest.
Do you think that muscle cars, or would you say fast cars like a Tesla over a classic?
See, I love classic stuff, but I'm gonna go with the Tesla just because they're so cool.
Really?
Like, yeah, like
That's a big one for me, dude. You're hurting me right now,
I
man.
know. I'm sorry.
The rumble of an old muscle car compared
Oh,
to
it's
like,
cool. It's cool. But just I don't know, man. Being in a Tesla is, and maybe it's just because it's new, like the classics are gonna be here forever, I think. But like probably just because it's new and I don't own one and I don't get to ride one regularly. Every time I've gotten to be in one, it just blows my mind. At least
okay,
I think.
who would you rather start a business with? Would you rather start a business with Ellen DeGeneres, or would you rather start a business with Dr. Phil?
Oh gosh. Uh, Based on what's been coming out about Ellen lately, she sounds like she'd be a difficult boss. I mean, she
They're
already is a
both
difficult boss to work with.
unbearable. Let me tell you that.
Dr. Phil, I mean, that is a much more chaotic environment, probably just because of the type of person that's coming around that show. Uh, and going into business with him, see, I feel like just personality wise, I feel like Ellen's going to be very involved. Where I feel like Dr. Phil's probably going to die. He's just going to let me do my thing and then yell at me occasionally. And I'd rather have that than someone who's up at my business all the time.
I mean, you're doing nothing, man. You got to get your day going. Ellen would be like, here's a prize, hooray!" And then she'll take it away from you, like, what?
Yeah, and then she'll do something really underhanded and hurt you. Uh, so, so one we've been batting around as a topic for the show that I'm curious to get people's perspective on, and this isn't even necessarily pop culture, but what would be the worst historical figure to be haunted by?
That's a really good one.
I know.
Hold on,
Because
I gotta think on this one.
yeah, you got to think of this one. Now, when we were thinking about it, the obvious ones are your dictators and your terrible people like that. But that I don't think that that's the answer, and I honestly haven't even landed on who I would choose. So
Does he have to be super popular, like super known? Because I feel like everybody's gonna choose
No.
Hitler, but I feel like
yeah, but see, Hitler's absolutely terrible, but I don't know that that's necessarily the answer because you got to think about like, personally, I would not want to be haunted by someone who's going to be around all the time and like, especially up in my business. That's a recurring theme, but
well, turn that question into two, technically. Turn it into one you have to be locked with 24/7, like handcuffed to, and then do
Oh.
one where you have to be haunted. Because if I was going to choose somebody that was alive, I would say it'd have to be Putin, because he scares the
Oh,
living
yeah.
shit out of me, and I don't want to be in fear every single moment of every single day. But if I was going to choose somebody from the past, I would pick. I don't know. I feel like Napoleon would be a pain in the ass, just because.
Yeah, I mean that was one that I actually had in mind, just because he's awful, but he also has short person complex. Like I mean Napoleon complex is named after him, so he must have been truly awful if that term has stood the test of time.
Even though
And
he's
I'm not
even
putting
though
up with
he's
somebody like
as tall as I am, he still had a short person
that.
complex.
At the time. Now maybe it's just a me thing because I'm 6'4", so maybe it's just a thing that I don't like as much. But Napoleon complex doesn't roll with me, so I don't much care for him. But there's tons of people you can choose, like presidents. There's been a lot of presidents that would just not be fun to be around. I mean, I feel like Teddy Roosevelt's going to just make you feel awful all the time. He's still going to be hunting. He's still going to be like, a commanding personality, and just I would not want to be haunted by someone who makes me feel less than all the time. And on top of that, like Lyndon B. Johnson was, an enormous jerk. I don't want that in my life. So it's just like there's tons of options there. There's tons of options throughout history: dictators, warmongers, generals. It's just the opportunities are endless. But you gotta the challenge is doing the research to find the exact right one. And I don't think anybody's come close yet in our conversations about that question. But Napoleon's a good option. So one that I like is like Pacino or De Niro.
Pacino, bro.
See, I like De Niro, but I'm going to add a little caveat here. Which one would be the worst father-in-law?
Oh, fuck De Niro.
Yeah, see, I flip it on that one is because like he played the father-in-law in Meet the Fockers. I feel like that's actually what he'd be like as a father-in-law.
No, I think he would be way more of like just honestly, it could go either way. It could be really nice or he could be a total dick. I feel like I've seen him do a little bit of comedy when he did the roast and everything, which I thought was pretty funny. But I think he's just very, very serious and very, very cutthroat and dry. When I feel like Pacino is definitely with more like a lot of the comedy movies he kind of plays in. He seems like the type that would be like rough at first, but he'd open up very quickly.
Yeah, well, to me, it comes down to the fact that I think, like you said, De Niro's done some comedy, so there's like a lighter side to his personality that we haven't seen from Pacino. I feel like Pacino's like always on, and if someone's gonna get mad at me ever and yell at me, I'd almost prefer it to be De Niro because Pacino he takes that to a whole other level. It's a little bit more intimidating, I think.
Who do you think is the best? Well, that's a comic book one. I can't really ask you that one. I was supposed to say, who do you think's the best Avenger?
The best Avenger.
Yeah.
Well, see, I've seen the movie, so like personally, the one that I like the most is going to be I don't know. Iron Man's cool, but Tony Stark seems like a jerk, so I'm not going to go with him. Ant Man's got an interesting power, but he's Paul Rudd, so that's a bonus. Um, I mean, to have someone on your side, I'm going to go with the Hulk because I think that's pretty
Yeah.
badass.
I
Plus,
wouldn't. I wouldn't fuck with him.
I'm not a big Ruffalo. I mean, he's a fine actor. Seems like a cool enough dude. Something about his voice I don't necessarily want to hang out with, but he's a cool dude. But speaking of the Avengers, you said what's your favorite Avenger? Which Avenger do you think would be best in the bedroom?
Ooh, I have two
Tough.
answers. I can choose a guy and a girl, right?
Yeah.
The best girl Avenger, I would have to probably say probably Scarlet, man. She just seems
Yeah.
like she could throw me around the room, which I like. I always liked
That's
it when I could be body slammed through a table. I've had it
that,
happen before, and it's pretty fun.
that seems like the right answer. I was going to say the answer that I think a lot of people would have that makes me uncomfortable in thinking about this one is not the Hulk or Mark Ruffalo. It's the Hulkalo. I don't know if you remember from the most recent Avengers movie where he is like stuck between the two personalities.
That would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, and he's wearing the sweater. He's got the like 5 o'clock shadow. The second I saw him pop up on screen like that, I was like, "There's going to be a lot of really confusing fan fiction about this one." And so I think that personally, if you ask a lot of people, that'd probably be the answer. And I'm not entirely down with that.
Who do you think would be a better? Who do you think was a better Spider-Man, Tom Holland, or would you say Tobey Maguire?
I like Tom Holland personally. I feel like he fits the like.
You saw my
Tobey
face in the
Maguire was
beginning,
good
right?
enough. Yeah,
Okay. I get always confused for Tom Holland all the time.
I could see that. I could see that,
Okay.
especially when you're clean shaven. I could absolutely see it. I think Tom Holland fits the Spider-Man more than me, character more to me.
Tom Holland's a good fit, I think, just because of the age range. But I think
Yeah,
what made it so cool about Tobey Maguire was the fact that he wasn't a kid and he made you believe that he was. Now, I want you to look at your camera on your computer screen real quick. Ready?
yep,
Okay.
man.
That's Tom Holland and then
Yeah,
someone more.
you're pretty much spot on. Man. Yeah, that is I don't want to say identical because but it's pretty close.
I had it happen in a week, a matter of a week. My buddy was like, dude, you look like Tom Holland after a podcast we did. And I was like, shut up, because I don't like him. And then my one best friend, like, that's his favorite all-time Spider-Man. It's his favorite movie. He wanted to see Homecoming, everything in theaters. He was buying
Yeah.
tickets. He always calls me it. And then I remember it happened again. I was working at this hotel and I was delivering toilet paper to a room, and the guy opens up. He goes, "Thanks, man." He looks at me. He goes, "You know who? Does anybody ever tell you look like?" And I'm like, "Tom Holland." He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Fucking A."
I mean, yeah. My question to flip that one on its side a little bit is, of the two Spider-Men you just mentioned, Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, we're gonna leave Andrew Garfield out.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, just ignore that one. Which one would make the most obnoxious stepbrother?
Oh my God, I would have to say Tom Holland just because I can't even stand the man alone.
I think that's fair, but he seems, at least from the interviews I've seen, and it's celebrity, so you got to take that stuff with a
He
grain of
talks
salt.
too much about his dog.
He does, but at least I feel like he's going to come in and like people are going to think he's cute, but he's your little step brother, and he's just kind of goofy and whatever. But if Tobey Maguire came in, I'm immediately going to, he was like known for being a pretty good looking guy and all that stuff, and he also seems much more like charismatic in a way that would be a little bit more threatening, and that's not what you want in your household, I don't think, especially if you're like going to high school together or something.
I want to switch that again too. So who do you think would be a better wingman? I definitely think Tom Holland would be.
Yeah, Tom Holland definitely would be, because it's like taking Tom Holland to a bar as your wingman would be like going on a walk with your dog through like a college town.
Yeah, you just throw him out there and bring in the girls.
You just throw him out there. Yeah, he's bait. They're like, oh, he's so cute, and he's like, come meet my brother. Like,
can I pet him?
My friend.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Have at it. But Tobey Maguire would not be a wingman for you. He'd just go and he would go meet them, saying he's going to, like Barney from How I Met Your Mother, if you ever saw that show. Like he'd be like, let's play Have You Met Ted? But instead he ends up leaving with the girl. Like that's what Tobey Maguire would do. And that's unacceptable, personally. One I like to ask that we haven't done on the podcast yet, but is in conversations, is if you could only have one meal from a restaurant, you had to eat it every day of your life, what would be the best option? Not your favorite, but what would be the best option?
I've heard this question on a podcast called Your Mom's House.
Oh,
and
I might have to check that out.
She's really good at Would You Rather. She actually had the funnel cake one, but it was a lot better than mine. Mine was just like rough at it. But yeah, one meal. I don't know, man, because I've eaten the same meal every single day, probably for the past going on 8 years. So,
and what is that one?
Just a salad with tuna, and I add cereal as croutons. So
that's a good answer. I was gonna say my answer is always like a steak burrito meal.
Oh,
because typically on the plate you're gonna get beans, rice, some like guacamole, sour cream. You're gonna get some peppers, some vegetables, and you're gonna get a burrito inside of a tortilla with like some type of sauce. And so really, depending on the occasion, like having a nice date night, take the steak out of the burrito, throw some rice with it, garnish with some of the veggies.
Well, she can eat whatever she wants. You don't have to. You can't.
No, but you want to have a nice meal too. You don't want her eating like a filet mignon and you're over there like munching on a steak burrito. You want to match the elegance.
Well, I think it depends on what your lifestyle is that you're living and how long do you plan to live. If I only plan to live till I'm like 26, I want to eat nothing but taquitos every single day. You know what I mean? But then
that's a fair point,
because my body will shut down after like I hit 27 or something. Probably going like cardiac arrest. But then I look at what could I eat every single day for the rest of my life, never get sick of, and honestly get nutritional value from it? Probably a chicken sandwich.
That's a good choice. Are we talking grilled or crispy?
Probably a crispy one, because I feel like after a year or so, I mean, I've been eating grilled chicken every single day. I can tell you, I'm fucking sick of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I eat a lot of grilled chicken too. It gets a little old sometimes. You gotta find new ways to do it.
Look, I'll give them a shout out right now. Okay, David from Way Hot Sauce, one of the sponsors for my podcast. Two Angry Cats, Josh Williams, another sponsor. Jeff from Soak City Hot Sauce. I don't think I'd be able to eat without them sending hot sauce over to me, because it honestly, it's all I dump. I always dump hot sauce, dump cayenne pepper, dump everything on my salads, because you're eating cans of tuna every single day. Then eventually I'll throw in, like, I'm tired of opening up a can of tuna, the freaking click of the can and the spinning of the can opener. And then it's like, I just want some flavor. So then I'll get a chicken breast or something. And then next thing you know, like after eating, like I just had chicken breast last night. I had some this morning. Dude, it's dry as fuck. I'm not a big fan of it. I know I could not eat that forever. And then I start looking at like, well, eggs are pretty good.
Well, see, I'm a big egg fan. I eat eggs every day. Love them. It is an essential food group for me. But when it comes to chicken, you almost always have to have some sort of sauce. Now, hot sauce is a good option. A good barbecue sauce. Yeah. I like to do that number. That's a good one too. But yeah, I was gonna say I end up eating a lot of the same things. That salmon, you just gotta find some ways to vary it up a little bit. But yeah, I'll have to check out some of that hot sauce, because I'm almost exclusively like a Cholula guy or a Frank's if I'm in the mood for like something a little more buffalo style. But I'll have to give those a try. It might change the food game for me.
It's definitely cool to see, like, when I talk to them and stuff, and then like they'll send out a bottle or something, and I'll taste it. It's like I only promote people like, like I've had a good conversation with, and I believe in, like people that are like
Yeah,
real people. Because I mean, I think that's the whole point of it all. It's like same thing with your podcast. When you have a guest on, which I definitely think is your next goal. Like I'm more
oh
than
yeah,
happy. Sign me up for a
yeah,
spot, dude. But you need to also make sure you have a rapport with them. Like, because the
yeah,
thing is, if somebody, the same thing you see in public every single day. Somebody says something, somebody disagrees, nobody continues the conversation. They just stop. It's like, hang
yeah.
on a second. Let's figure out why you disagree. We don't have to, say I'm right and you're wrong, but more like the fact of like, we're not even going to address this. You don't even want to talk to the person because they don't stand on the same political view as you. It's like you're denying yourself a conversation.
Yeah, which I think is a shame because personally, like, I like to have conversations about anything, even if it's something I disagree with somebody on, because like I feel like you can always find some commonalities in there or a way to have that conversation that's productive. And, I'm not going to lie and say our podcast is doing that because we're talking about the dumbest things on earth. But, just in my personal life, like there's gray areas everywhere. So like, I have certain political beliefs, somebody else has them. Like there are some things we can find in there that we can all agree on. And then it just comes down to figuring out what the best way to like work on things with each other. But so often now, the second anybody bristles at something, you're just out. You give up and they shut you down. You know, that's not for me. I like having good conversations with people. It's like one of my favorite things to do in life, and it's just kind of rare these days that you get to do that with someone you don't necessarily know or who you disagree with fundamentally.
Well, I think you just explained the reason why I started my podcast.
There you go. You can clip that out, put it in another trailer or something in the future.
Well, I mean, it's true, man. I noticed for so long that the social media, even though we're so more connected than ever, we're obviously really, really not, because the
Oh
fact
yeah,
is we rely too much in these things to be able to see our friends, being able to talk to people every single day. You miss out on the engaging conversation. I mean, the first 90 I did in person, which is why when
hmm
I brought up Zoom and you're like, all right, how do we do this? I was like, you're new to podcasting. You're like, yes. I'm like, because I was at that same spot you were. Somebody was
yeah,
telling me, like, I use this program, we could talk through here, and they showed me the guidelines, which is I'm more than happy to show you, because it's about having fun. You got to find yourself, you got to find your free time, and podcasting is
yeah.
so much of a competition all the time on trying to get followers, views, and who's better, who has a better podcast. It's like, let's just bring it back to how it was when it first started, and everybody's like, good show, good podcast. Like, if you don't like it, don't listen to it. If you
Yeah,
it's everyone's got their own creative ideas and masterpiece on stuff. The only podcasts I think I don't like are the ones that really shit on other people's podcasts. Like,
yeah, yeah.
but that's their whole ploy. Like, there's a podcast out there that looks up Joe Rogan's podcast, looked up the Burt Kreischer podcast, looked up Tom Segura's podcast, like any podcast, like Last Podcast on the Left, whatever. They just
Yeah.
go there and they make an episode on their podcast, but they just shit on those podcasts. Like Last Podcast on the Left, more like Last Podcast in my chest. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's just them shitting on somebody. I'm like, wow, you don't understand. These are just people that are just trying to, but people will listen to them because they love the aggression, and it's like watching Jersey Shore, which brings a good question. Which was better, Jersey Shore or the Puppy Bowl?
Oh man, I'm always going to go with the Puppy Bowl because Jersey Shore is just not. It was never for me. I couldn't get down with those folks.
The reason why I had that such of a large conclusion was the night of the Super Bowl, they play the Puppy Bowl like afterwards, and
hmm
there was Jersey Shore on, and I had to choose between Jersey Shore or the Puppy Bowl, and I watched the Puppy Bowl.
I think that's the right choice. At the very least, It's relaxing after a whole night of probably drinking and eating and hanging out with friends, and everybody goes home. I'd rather watch the Puppy Bowl, something a little more calm than Jersey Shore. I don't need people yelling at each other.
I mean,
I've
they
had enough
involve
of
the
that.
same content, just in opposite ways. Like, if you want to watch like an episode of Jersey Shore, just throw a thing of Puppy Bowl in there, and you'll be, you'll be evened out. You won't be so angered or so hurt by what you've seen on Jersey Shore. But there was also parts like a puppy took a shit in the middle of the field, and I saw Snooki take a shit. So I was like, okay,
I mean, life's all about that balance, isn't it?
it
You
all
gotta
comes down to
gotta
poop.
balance it out.
All
The
right,
common denominator.
all right. Here's the last one. Here's the last one. Ready?
All right.
If you had to choose to never peeing again or never pooping again, which would you choose?
Oh man. Is death an option?
No.
Either of those sounds terrible.
I think
Probably
never
peeing
peeing.
again.
Yeah, never peeing. I can't. I tell you this morning has been like the 5th day I hadn't taken a shit, and I took one,
Hmm.
and I've never felt so much better. Like I've completed a mission in my life that I feel like God could just take me out.
Well, see, both are bad because, like, I drink a ton of water all day, and so you just have to pee all day,
No, it just goes
and
away.
it gets distracting. It
It's
just
just
goes away.
yeah, like the pee just you just don't have the feeling for it, but you also never have the urge to shit. So
I
then
would
it's like,
gladly take never having the feeling to pee again because I drink, like I said, drink a ton of water, and it'd be much easier to get my work done throughout the day if I wasn't bothered by that, constantly. I'd be
yeah,
much more productive.
it's never fun getting up in the middle of the night to take a piss. It's like I only slept an hour.
Well, and it's also like it's like an obstacle course often. You got furniture in your room. Like I just put a new chair in my bedroom, and I've stubbed my toe on it probably like 8 times because it's just like you eventually get used to walking that path from like your side of the bed out the door to the bathroom. But then once you put something new in the environment, even if it's not in that path, you're gonna hit it. It's just that's science.
That's why I bought a $50 light for my toilet so it glows in the dark.
Yeah, see, I probably should do something like that.
It was
It'd
a
be much
waste of
safer.
Amazon money, but I never regret it.
Rarely is there an actual waste of Amazon money. It's you usually buy something that's got some sort of purpose. So I think that one's a good one, personally.
Exactly. Well, hey, look, Jason. Why did I say Jason? I was immediately thinking of freaking.
I'll
I'm
take
looking.
it. It's fine.
I'm looking at your photo, and I'm like, the way your position reminds me of. There's a photo of Jason Statham where he's just like sitting, like he's standing cross armed or whatever, with the serious look on his face, and that's what yours looks like. But you
Yeah,
got
well,
smile.
mine's a little bit different because it's not as intimidating. It's got big like corporate chef energy.
Yes, it actually does. It's got that big dick energy.
Yeah, but I'm not a corporate chef, nor am I. It's fitting. I'm a smiler. I'm not going to scowl in that picture. But yeah, I'll take Jason though. It's cooler name than Josh in many ways.
Actually, I can't say that because Drake and Josh is one of my favorite shows.
Okay, I'll take that too. Josh Peck's pretty cool. I'm down with him.
You're Josh Ballard, though. You just got to switch the last name, put a baller in there, and you're good to go.
I'm golden.
Golden. All right, look, Josh, promote your show, man. I want to make sure people can find your content. I'm definitely going to be shooting some ideas at you to be on this
Please.
podcast, man. Because
yeah, I was gonna say we'd love to have you as a guest, but our podcast is called Tell Me I'm Wrong. You can get it pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. Go to tmiwpod.com or check us out on any of the social media accounts at tmiwpod and give us a listen. We've got 2 episodes now and many more on the way, so we'd love to have you.
thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Blank Podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.